Hawkeye episode 3 was not only the best episode of the series yet, but it was loaded with Easter eggs and had a really nice hidden cameo. BD here with your breakdown of Hawkeye episode 3, which means we're running through all the Marvel Easter eggs in this one, talking about that big cameo you might have missed or have a theory about, and I'll be sharing my full spoiler-filled reaction/review at the end of the video. Let's go! The episode starts with Maya Lopez being introduced through her own eyes and ears perspective in a lot of really touching ways. Maya's father was in one way or another tied to an organized crime group, so Clint Barton killed him as Ronin, presumably during the blip between Infinity War and Endgame. This means Maya was probably raised by her uncle, whose hand makes a cameo, and I'll tell you right now, that hand belongs to none other than Wilson Fisk.
Whether you choose to believe, that's up to you.
In the comics, Maya is the adopted daughter of Fisk, aka Kingpin himself. Safe bet, Vincent D'Onofrio is reprising his Daredevil role as an MCU variant of the character, and he won't be the only cast member from those Netflix shows to be joining the MCU.
Daredevil?
When Maya's dad was dying, he left a bloody handprint on her face, and while this is kind of reminiscent for me of Finn's bloody stormtrooper mask in The Force Awakens, it's actually a nod to the comics where her father, known there as Crazy Horse, was killed by Kingpin and did the same thing, wiping that bloody handprint on her. She later takes on a white handprint across her face as part of the Echo Guys. When her dad died, he wished for Kingpin to raise her well, and Kingpin does that, and it seems like we're going to see some version of that here in the Hawkeye series. The episode ends with Jack Duquesne holding the Ronin sword to Clint's throat, which probably won't end in like a big to-the-death fight in episode 4. Tony Dalton said in our exclusive interview, which you can find on the Comicbook.com YouTube channel, that Jack and Clint trained together in comics, but the show isn't going to be doing that. And I feel like Jack might not be a full-on swordsman villain like he is in the books, and this might be the point where some communication reveals that Eleanor Bishop is somehow tied to Armand Duquesne's murder instead. That said, maybe there will be a fight because Kate swears up and down that Jack is the bad guy, and this has to play out in one way or another, but he's also probably just guarding his house, right?
Was it self-defense?
The arrows in the episode included a USB arrow.
A USB arrow? What am I supposed to do with this?
Pulling a moment straight from the comics, and you can also actually find several other arrows in the books, like the plunger arrow, the smoke bomb arrow, the explosive tip arrow, and probably some more that we'll see later on in the series. There's also the awesome Pymtech arrow that makes a normal arrow giant, which is kind of a callback and reversal to when Ant-Man rode Hawkeye's arrow in Captain America Civil War, which was actually a famous comic book moment in itself from the cover of Avengers 223. In fact, the whole car chase sequence in this episode with the Challenger and everything, that's one big Easter egg from the Hawkeye comic. We love seeing adaptations. When Clint and Kate run from the tracksuit mafia by jumping off the bridge, it's an homage to Clint's really cool Hawkeye moment in the Avengers where he jumped off the building and swung himself back into it, which Kate watched, which we saw in the first episode of this series, and Kate is probably geeking out because she knows that she's kind of living that moment with her idol. We're like reading comics with the people who play the characters. I'm sorry, I just think that's so cool. I'm happy that happened. Kate Bishop does draw the classic Hawkeye look from the comics for Clint as a suggestion for something to wear, and it would offer more inspiration for people. Interestingly though, the Hawkeye costume did appear in last week's episode when one of the LARPers was wearing it as seen in a behind-the-scenes promo for the show. Also, the good boy still needs a name, and Kate is for now calling him Pizza Dog like the comics, but he still needs to be called Lucky. A dog's name is Lucky, and you better say it, okay? We will ride. Good boy, though. Reaction time! I loved this episode. I thought it was brilliant from start to finish. The heavy opening that shows just how hard life has been for Maya as a deaf child and the pressure it was putting on her father to try to help her was really touching right out of the gate. I'm impressed with how Marvel is handling hearing disabilities on screen between Eternals and Hawkeye, and I really liked how in this case it provided opportunities for emotional sequences like Clint's call to his kids. The Easter eggs in the episode were a lot of fun. I still want to see who bought Avengers Tower. I'm begging, just show me the skyline. Clint and Kate's dynamic is so fully in stride that I can't imagine how it will improve. It's so good, how can it get better? And a big shout out to directors Burt and Birdie for this episode, not only for having the cool names Burt and Birdie, but for their really nice balance of tones between the emotion, the action, and the comedy in this episode. They put together a brilliant continuous shot in that car chase sequence, and the focus racking to the arrowhead to show us the Pymtech logo on it, just a brilliant touch. Solid cliffhanger and a nice Kingpin tease. Overall, I'm giving this episode 9.4 out of 10. That's where I'm at. What did you think of Hawkeye episode 3? Drop your rating out of 10 in the comment section so we know you watched this video through to the end. And hit me up on Instagram at BrandonDavisBD if you want to talk more. Phase Zero episode 47 is available now on all major podcast platforms to talk more about this episode and the MCU. So go subscribe and download. I'm BD. I'll see you there.